We have no more pure-blooded Amerindians in terms of blood quantum, but we certainly have people who know where they came from. They can trace their identity and they feel very proud of their indigenous or First Peoples heritage. For the past few years, we have been lobbying that the curriculum should include more of the First Peoples, because in the past there were just a little bit of it and not a very accurate portrayal of the First Peoples. And our calls for that, have been heard with past and present governments, listening to our call and including it in the curriculum. When we had that event for the students at the National Center in Cuba, the teachers, they were so happy to know that we could have put on such an event, because they said it is in the curriculum and we have to study First Peoples. So they were happy for that kind of exposure. Those are names that were given by the colonizers, Caribs and Arawaks. They are colonizers' names, and it is not the right name for the nations. And the Caribs, the right name is Cariña or Kalinago or Kalipuna, depending on the territory you come from. And who we call the Arawaks, the proper name and language is Lokono. But we talk about the Caribs and Arawaks, but in Trinidad there were much more nations inhabiting this space as opposed to only Caribs and Arawaks. We had the Waraos. The Waraos were a main grouping that settled mostly in the South Line. They came to this area also over time and mixed with the Caribs and the Arawaks, as we call them. But we had other nations. We had the Nipuyos, we had the Chimes, we had the Shaguanis, we had the Tamanapogotos, and you have all these other nations. Where the First Peoples retain their special and unique identity is first and foremost in the Santa Rosa Festival. The Santa Rosa Festival is a festival of the Catholic Church. The mission of Arima was dedicated to Santa Rosa, the first saint of the New World. And the Amerindians who existed in the three encomiendas of Tacarigua, Arauca, and Cora were moved to Arima, and they were placed in this mission dedicated to Santa Rosa. So their patron saint was and still is Santa Rosa. In requesting a day of recognition, we had to choose a day with some significance. You just couldn't ask for a day and choose any day. So we chose the 14th of October of every year, because it was on the 14th of October in the year 1637 that Hayarima, who was the last great Nipuyo warrior chief, attacked the Spaniards in St. Joseph. As you know, St. Joseph was the first capital, in retaliation of the oppression of his people. And together with the help of some other forces, as the history says, from the Dutch from Tobago and some other Amerindian groups, he was able to burn the town of St. Joseph to the ground. Of course, they didn't have buildings like you have today. But that was short-lived, because, the Spaniards came back with more higher power and advanced weapons and so on, and eventually he was captured. So that because of the stance he took on that day in retaliation and in defense of his people, we thought it was an appropriate day to choose as an annual day of recognition. And that is the significance of Hayarima. So the monument is erected there, so we assemble there. We are not doing it in worship of the monument, but because of the significance of the day, we assemble in that area. In the earlier days, the First Peoples culture would be mostly based in nature, agriculture people, They made their living off the land, agriculture, different crops, farming and so on, fishing. And they made their utensils out of the material they would find in the forest, out of the clay by the rivers and so. And they made everything they needed for their survival out of nature. Nature provided everything. Nature, the forest was their grocery. Pastel is not 100% indigenous. It is a mixture of the Hispanic and the Amerindian. The corn, the leaves that it is wrapped in is indigenous, but the meats and the filling is European, Spanish. So it's a mixture. Some people in Venezuela, they say ayaca. They call it ayaca, meaning a little bit of here and a little bit of there. The wild meat, of course, from the forest, the lap, the agouti, the tatu, the deer, the wild hog. But those things in the indigenous form, it is prepared smoked. They would smoke it, dry it, so that when they needed a piece, they just cut it and they make a stew with it, or they eat it just like that. That is the real indigenous food. So the famous barbecue that we enjoy today is a development of that. So when you ask foods that we enjoy, the only thing that they would not have had is the sauce that you would put on it today. It's the food of the ancestors, the maize and the yuca. The smoke ceremony is one of the ways in which the indigenous people, some groupings of the indigenous people pray. The indigenous people's spirituality is nature-based. The harvest of the first crop is baked specially to be offered in the fire. The corn that is harvested will be set aside to offer into the fire, together with sacred incense that we harvest from the forest, and tobacco. Not tobacco as you would go and buy a cigarette in the shop, but a tobacco that is specially prepared because it is the food of the gods, of the spirits, in the spirituality of the indigenous peoples. So that smoke ceremony is one of the mediums through which indigenous peoples pray to send their prayer to the heavens and to the Great Spirit. Those of the west, those of the north, and those of the south, bear witness to our prayer. My wish for the First Peoples is that we realize the village, the First Peoples Heritage Village. We have been returned 25 acres of land from 1,320 that we had originally in the mission that were taken away under the British government. We lost all, and we have now been returned a 25-acre parcel. Our vision for that area is to develop that into a village, a First Peoples Heritage Village. But not a village where you're going to go back 200-300 years under thatch and in outhouses and things like that. A village that will keep as much as possible the indigenous architecture, where you're going to have in that space indigenous industry, such as a factory to process the cassava, so that from that you will be preserving that aspect of the traditional foods and also bringing income to sustain the village. Similarly, the craft, an area to continue the indigenous craft, and also an outlet for sales so that you can bring returns to sustain the village.
Bye.